Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am Kristen, your host, and I have the lovely Leanne Meiser with me today. Hello.
Hello.
I want to introduce you to all of my lovely podcasters who are anywhere from about to launch a podcast to they are seasoned podcasters. And being that it's January and we're all kind of like, okay, this year,
Oh,
I want to set some great goals for my podcast, for my business, for my family, of course, for myself. And that's why I have you on today, Leanne, because you are a life and business coach with this background of CPA, accountant. You love talking numbers, which
yes.
I do not. So that is why you are here with us today to help us kind of think through some of these financial goals and things to think about as a podcaster specifically in 2024.
Great. Yes, I love all of the numbers. It's math. I'm like 1 plus 1 always equals 2. Like I like that concreteness. So yes, let's talk all the numbers.
Okay. So, and I'm glad that you love it because I do not. I love that my husband is a math nerd. He's a financial advisor, and when he just starts talking math, I just kind of check out.
Yeah.
But when I listen to your show, so she has a podcast called Unlocking Your Six-Figure Business, and in her podcast, one of the episodes that I really loved was all about numbers, and I actually thought that was fascinating because, like I said, I typically check out. And you were like, okay, we're going to actually plot this out. Here we go.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to just start with, just setting the foundation. What do we need to think about as podcasters in 2024 in our financial goals?
I think first and foremost, like why are you podcasting? Right?
Mm.
Like you're podcasting to probably grow a business. You're not just like, "Oh, this is a lovely hobby for me to just podcast and share information." It's probably one of your marketing strategies to achieve your business goals. So, I think first and foremost is understanding what are your financial goals in 2024 and getting really honest with what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. And I I I'll often ask my clients this question, like, "How much do you want to make in 2024?" And one of my clients said, "How much do I want to make or how much do I think I can make?" And I
Mm,
said, "Well, let's just pick a number." And so she gave me a number. Her number was $50,000. And I said, "Okay, great. How are you going to feel at the end of 2024 when you hit that?" And she was like, "I really want to make 100." And I
mm,
said, "Okay, well then let's just pick 100 because if you set the goal for 50, you're going to do the work for 50, but in the back of your mind you're going to be wanting 100 and you're going to get to the end of the year and say, I wish I would have done more. I am unfulfilled with this number of 50. Even though that was your goal, like really be honest with yourself and set the goal. You're never going to achieve anything if you're not honest with what that number is. So I think that is the starting point is understanding what do you want to do. Um and then figuring out what is the way that you're achieving that number. As a podcaster, one of your revenue streams might be the advertising side of things. Maybe you are podcasting to sell a course or a program. How do those revenue streams add up to your ultimate goal? I think
mhm,
is the second question, and really doing a gut check. Does this make sense? If you set a goal of 500,000 and then your revenue streams, you're looking at them and you're like, there's not enough time, there's not enough energy. Maybe you'd have to podcast every single day and you're like, I can't do that.
mhm.
Like there's not enough time. Then you have to be really honest again with a gut check of does the math? Does it make sense that with the revenue streams I have that I could achieve that number? So I think those are like the first two main points is understanding what is your income goal and is this possible? Are my revenue streams going to add up to that?
Yeah. I love those questions of like really getting honest too, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of my listeners are coaches who have podcasts. And so we have talked a lot about how your income stream is really going to be off of your whatever you offer as a coach, whether that's a
Mhm.
course, membership, one-on-one group coaching, any of those. Because until you get to some pretty high download numbers, advertising and sponsorship is most likely not going to happen right off the bat. So
Yeah.
it is really getting honest. What is the energy that you have to put towards this, and what's realistic, and what's what's something that's exciting to you, where it's that sweet medium of just enough to challenge, to push you and not to overwhelm you, versus something that is, I just give up on creating any kind of goals because I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had talked to somebody one time, and the first question I ask, I coach one-on-one. The first question I ask in a consult is, how much do you want to make? And the person said, I want to make as much money as humanly possible. I was like, okay, fine. And I said, how much time, she sells also a one-on-one option. And I said, how many hours do you have to sell that? And she's like, I can do as many as possible. And I'm like, well, no, you can't. Like, you
Mhm,
need to sleep, you need to take care of yourself, like maybe
mhm.
family, all of those other things. And so, especially with if you're selling one-on-one groups, a membership, knowing your numbers, like you cannot, I know how many spots I have. I coach my
Mhm.
clients 6 months, once a week. So I know I have 15 to 20 hours that I could devote to clients. I'm
Mhm.
not going to pick an income goal that is more than 15 to 20 hours a week because I can't sustain that.
Yeah.
So know those numbers and be realistic with yourself. Like, is this possible? And that's one of the things, and I think, and we talked about in that podcast episode, I had a download that you could just, does this make sense with the hours that I have, is one of the biggest questions. Because, of course, as entrepreneurs, we'd love to make all kinds of money, but it has to make sense and, yes, fulfill you. Like,
Mhm.
there are certain things in my business that I'm like, I don't want to do that yet. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love coaching one on one. And so that might stifle my income a little bit, but I'd rather do that and be challenged and fulfilled that way than pushing myself and not delivering at the level I want to.
I think that's so key, is just that finding that sweet spot, that contentment, and knowing what is best for you, what is best for your family, what's best for your people.
Yes.
and and that continue to um, that holistic approach, like what is really beneficial to everyone involved,
Yes.
not only you and your environment, but also your clients. Like, how are you going to give the best to your clients or your participants in your group coaching or whatever it is?
Yes.
um, I want to ask something, because I know you hit on it on this episode that you had on your podcast, which was really actually the real number of what you want to bring in. Because I have been walking through this in real time with my own business coach here in Colorado Springs, and it was like this wake up call of like, oh wow, I made this much money this past year, but actually I really only took home about
Oh, yeah.
10% of that. So, I would love for you to hit on that too.
Yes, I am huge on return on investment. So you touched on it a little bit. My background is accounting and finance. I knew at a very young age, I was in 5th grade when I knew I wanted to be a CPA. But life circumstances, I lost my mom to ovarian cancer, and being a CPA and working in public accounting means a lot of time away from your family. And I got in at a very busy time after Enron. And so
Yeah.
I was traveling a ton, and I said, this is just not sustainable for the life that I want. I need to be able to be home and be present. And so got into corporate accounting. And then after the birth of our daughter, started in network marketing. And so I just knew that there were just a lot of people that were struggling to grow a business and understand what it takes to be successful in business. And they were spending a lot of money and time in coaches and programs. And the one question that I don't see being don't see being talked about enough is your return on your investment. So
Mm.
when you're investing in a program, in a course, in a one-on-one coach, how much money are you making because you worked with them? Like you
Mhm.
should see, like you should be making that decision for yourself on that investment based on where you're struggling in your business. So I worked a lot with network marketers, and they would, from their upline, say, "Oh, I need to take this course." And they would put $500 or $1,000 into a course, but it wasn't fulfilling a need for their business. So they were spending a ton of money. It's a business write off, but they weren't seeing how that grew their income. And so that's one of the questions I ask people is, what is that return on investment? How are you going to grow? But ultimately, yeah, what's your number to bring home?
Mm.
Because you do want to have money in your business to be investing in marketing, in podcasting equipment, in a coach, in your program, like to grow. You want to have that, but you want to be bringing home the right number as well. And I think sometimes we miss that gap. We think, oh, we're in business now. All the money is just interchangeable. And it's really not. You should have your separate business account. How much money are you keeping in your business? How much are you reserving for taxes? And then how much are you taking home? Because that's a big gap as well. How much are you making as a business, but how much are you taking home is a different number. And so if you want to be taking home $100,000, then your income goal needs to be north of
Yeah.
100,000.
Yes, and I think that's you brought up so many things that I really wanted, you to expand on. So, let's say, hypothetically, let's have, podcaster Polly. Polly wants to bring in she wants to take home, uh, let's do an even,
Yeah.
$50,000.
Okay.
Um, she wants to bring that home, like, not out of,
Yeah.
that's her whatever,
Yeah.
net
Yeah.
income.
Yes.
And, okay, so if she has this $50,000 that she's bringing in 2024, um, what is, like, the first kinda steps that we walk through and think through?
I mean, I would think, first of all, I want to save some money for taxes.
So
So
how
I
much
would,
do you save?
you're going to make me get out my
I am.
calculator.
Calculator
Um,
time.
I would do, like, I like to save like 30% just to be, so I was pretty dead on. Let's say we're gonna save like 20,000 for taxes.
Okay.
I've got my paper out as well. So at a minimum, your business is gonna have to bring in at least 70,000. 50K, you're gonna pay 20,000 you'll put aside for taxes.
Mhm.
Do not quote me. I'm a CPA, but I don't do taxes. Talk to a tax accountant.
Yes.
So you have that number, and then you wanna add in any expenses that you plan to have. So maybe you do wanna invest in your podcasting course or membership. Maybe you want to hire your own business coach. Maybe you want to pay for advertising for your podcast or Instagram or whatever. Think about, like, and dream big, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's safe. It is January 2024. You don't have to commit to anything, but you
Mhm.
have to have an idea first and foremost of what you want to be investing in. So I would write down your dream list. Here are all the things I would do. Maybe you want to have all the podcasting equipment, all of the things. Now figure out those expenses that you want to have. Maybe it's 30,000 and we're up to 70,000. So your income as a business has to be at a minimum 100,000, because we're going to put 30,000 towards expenses, we're going to put 20,000 for taxes, and you're going to get paid 50,000.
Okay. Yep.
So that's where I would start off with, and then figure out at 100,000, say your whatever programs 1,000, you need to sell it 100 times. How
Okay.
are you selling 100 whatever at $1,000 throughout the entire year? And start planning. Like, obviously, we just finished December. December typically I see businesses dip because, again, I coach moms.
Mhm.
We're busy. We have all of the holiday stuff. We have the extra activities, purchasing Christmas gifts, going to all of making all the magical things, right? Breakfast with Santa. We're exhausted. We have all the concerts and all of the things going on. You just don't have a ton of time. So now it's January. Look at your calendar for 2024 and say, hey, in December, I don't want to work.
Mhm.
I'm not doing a launch in December. So now instead of selling 100 in 12 months, I'm going to sell 100 in 11 months.
It's
And maybe
great.
I want to take time off when the kids are home in the summer.
Mhm.
Again, what does that look like? So now I start to back up. Okay, if I'm going to sell 100, how do I want to sell this? Am I going to have like launching times? This is where your information would come in. Are you planning your podcast to
Mm.
do a launch and lead into that? So you can just start figuring out, when do I have to sell? We don't want to wait until September to be like, oh my gosh, let's check in on my numbers. I wanted to sell 100 and I've sold 25. How do I sell 75 now?
Yeah.
September, October, November. And oh, yeah, remember when I wanted to take December off? Well, I guess that's not happening.
Oh, so good, and I feel like you are reading the mail of so many people. I'm like, "Oh, yes, this is so good," and really planning ahead is
Yes.
so key to that intentionality,
Yes.
and you may not hit those numbers even if you are intentional, and that's okay. It's just feedback for the next year that you do this.
Yes, I had one of my clients do that. We just figured out with her business just the cyclicality of the business.
Mhm,
She just knows the way her business works. October, November, and December are huge months for her. So when she's at January and we set the goal, we don't put her income, we don't spread 100 out
mhm,
divided by 12. Maybe we have one or two in January, but we plan for later on, and we plan for, okay, well, yes, the bulk of my sales happens here, but do I have to be present to do that?
mhm.
Can
Yeah,
I be recording podcasts? Could I be setting up advertising plans so that things are happening more automatically? So you will be able, yes, you might not have that information right now,
mhm.
but next year, if you're tracking it, you will. And you
Yes.
won't be alarmed when it's like, oh, hey, it's March and we haven't sold anything. You're like, oh, that's fine. We do the bulk of our sales here. Now, maybe
Mm,
2025, you look and say, what can we do in January through March to better
yeah.
support that or take on additional programs or whatever like that?
Yeah, great idea. I love that. Okay. So thank you for breaking that down because I
Sure.
feel like that helps kind of wrap our heads around, okay, this is like real life. So, like coming back around to think of your ideal take home pay, then remember you have taxes and then you have the expenses and your dream list of what do you want to invest in, and really staying the course and being disciplined with
Yes.
like, ooh, this just came up. I want to do that. I am totally guilty of that. Of like, ooh, this sounds fun. But having a plan and discipline to move through of like, hey, this was my goal. I wanted to get here. I wanted to bring home 50K and I'm not going to go over budget on my expenses. Now, there's things that you may not account for, and that's okay. Again, like what we talked about,
Yeah.
feedback. And then really being thoughtful on how do you want to spend your time in the next year. And
Yeah.
maybe there are, I know for me, October is a crazy busy month in our household because there's 5 of 6 birthdays
Oh,
in
jeez.
our house. And then there's, like, high time for soccer and all of those things, so I'm always aware, "Okay, I don't wanna put too much on my plate in October, because I need to be more present here."
Yeah.
So but that is from years of entrepreneurship and knowing not to set myself up for failure or burnout. And all of this is tied together in such a beautiful way of really thinking about the whole picture in all
Yeah.
of our business, our life, our podcast, and So helpful, so helpful. Um, I want to hit on something because I know that some people might still be having a personal account mixed in with all of their
Oh, yeah.
business expenses. Do you want to speak to that?
Set up a separate account, because you don't want that commingling of funds. And one of the hardest parts I see, especially with female entrepreneurs, when they're trying to make an investment decision for their business, they start to automatically consider their family's finances. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, but Christmas is coming up, or we have a vacation and I shouldn't spend this money. When you have that separate account, it's your business's account.
Mhm.
Like, you're like, "Oh, I can make this decision from my business." Also, just from a pure financial reason, I had talked to my bank about this as well. There are bank accounts from a business bank account where you can pay yourself, and
Mhm.
then you have the proof. So if you want to buy a house or you go to do investments of some kind, personally, you'll be able to prove your income, where if you are not separating accounts, you're not gonna be able to do that.
Mm. That's really
So
important.
yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And especially, like, you may get to a point where you do wanna do some bigger things and you can take a loan out from your business, or,
Mhm.
and it's not impacting your family's finances at all, but it's just extra, like, it's just separate. So,
Yeah.
keeping them separate is important.
Yeah. And I really had to learn that this past year. Maybe it was about a year and a half ago. And somebody had challenged me because they were like, "What? You just put it right into your family account?" And I was more than happy to learn how to set up a business account,
Yes.
and I do the whole profit first. I don't know if you've heard of that, where there's, like, separate accounts
Mhm.
for this is the income, tax, profit, and it has been a game changer for my business, not only for me mentally, like, my mindset of I have a business. It's not just a
Yes.
hobby anymore.
Yes.
It's not just this, "Oh, it's a little extra income." No, 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 no. This is a legit business. And I think for a lot of people, they get stuck in the mindset of that, of not taking it seriously or themselves seriously.
Yeah. Well, and then no wonder we don't hit our income goals. And that's
Yep.
why we then don't set them, because
Yep.
it's just this little side thing. And then when you don't have it, you're like, oh, wait, hold up. Our
Yeah.
family cannot survive on me treating this like a hobby. This is a business. I need to show up for it like I am a business owner. I need to have set business hours. I remember it was when I was working network marketing and somebody had texted me. I was like really like struggling and like, "Hey, I really need to get this going." And she had texted me randomly, like, "Hey, would you like to do brunch?" And I got so mad. And I was like, "Does she not know that I have like a legitimate business?" And I'm like, "No, she doesn't, because I'm not treating it like a legitimate business, because some days I can do brunch. And then other times when I'm feeling a financial strain, I can't and I'm mad." And so
Mhm.
that was like a wake up call of, no, I need to treat this like a business. I do first, and then other people will start to treat it like a business.
Yes. Oh, so good. And I know Kristen Boss, she's a big network
Mhm.
marketer. She always says, "Oh, treat it like a business, not like a hobby." I think it's
Yeah.
somewhere along those lines. But yep, and this it goes the same. I truly think with podcasting is if this is genuinely on your heart to do this year, 2024, is to get your message out, to be serious about serving others and having this as a marketing opportunity to expand your reach, to amplify your voice, that you absolutely have to take it seriously. And taking this seriously and your business seriously is of utmost importance for success. And that is setting those financial goals. That is being really intentional about what you're spending money on, what you're investing in. And sometimes I did want to hit on this too, because I know podcasting is one of those investments where you don't necessarily see the ROI right away. It's a
Mhm.
patience game. And but it's absolutely worth it. So even just being aware, okay, how does this actually help? how does this help my coaching business? And number one, it's getting your voice out there for people to know, like, and trust you, and totally worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely totally worth it. Um, so I did want to plug that. Anything else that you would like to share before we wrap it up here?
I would say, especially because we had talked about it a little bit, just the fear of charging and making
Mm,
that income.
yes.
Um, people like it is a way to get your message out there, and you are being paid for the transformations that you give people.
Mm,
So I have a client that coaches moms of autistic children, and she struggled a lot with charging.
mhm,
And I said, "But look at all of the resources they get." And people, and it's a sweet spot of identifying like what to charge people because, and she saw it. Some people, a little bit of money is going to be huge for them. They're like, this is going to be a struggle, but I'm going to show up. And then other people could be like, I'll pay you $5,000, and they won't show up
right.
anyway. Right. But setting the income goal based on the impact that you're going to make, people are paying for an impact. They're paying for that change in life. They're paying for the resources that you're going to give them to help them create that change. And so not being afraid to just set the dollar amount
Mhm,
and be okay with receiving that dollar amount. Because you and I talked about this before, like the money in the right hands does a lot of great things. And
yep,
if you have this message on your heart, share it and make the income and see how many other lives are blessed because of it.
mhm. Oh,
But it's
absolutely.
not going to help to not set it.
Right. Yes. Yes, please don't keep giving away your stuff for free.
Yes.
Because you are so worth it, and people, like we had talked about, you will do anything for your kids. You will do anything to buy the supplements, to go and do all the research, and you are worth just as much as fighting for your kids as it
Yeah.
is fighting for your worth uh, to be something that people are investing in for themselves as well, because you have walked through a journey and you have that transformation to offer. Oh, so good, Leanne. Okay, so how can people connect with you?
Mainly over on Instagram. You can just find me at Leanne, Leanne Meiser, Meiser. That's primarily where you can find me posting daily, and then all the links to podcast and anything else I do is all there. So that's the best place.
Okay. Well, you'll have to go check her out, everybody. Again, her podcast is called Unlocking Your Six Figure Business. And I have loved getting to know Leanne over these last few weeks. And I I am confident that we will be connected
Yes.
further and further in the future. So I adore her, and you guys are going to love her too. So go check her out. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to hear all the success everybody has in 2024.
Yes.